Hi guys, it's Theresa of Larkin Design, and I'm here working on an art journal layout. And so there's my blank page. I've got a couple of pieces of ephemera that I'm going to work with, and some rub-ons and some alphabet stickers. And but I'm going to start with a wash, a background wash of color. So I'm using these just acrylic crayons. And I'm just coloring sort of randomly. I'm not worried at all about what this looks like right this minute. I'm just getting color on the page. And then what I'm going to do is take my paintbrush and water, and I'm going to move that color around on the page. This is actually one of my favorite parts of art journaling, is putting color down and then moving it around a little bit and watching that that paint picks up the grain in the gesso. These are gessoed pages, and those colors sink into those brush strokes. And this is one of my favorite parts to do, just to watch that become a subtle background it's really nice to look at. And again, I'm not really worried about where the colors are, or I did choose some of my favorite colors right now, pink and blue, turquoise, green, and a little bit of orange just for contrast. At this point I really don't know where this page is going to go. I just picked a couple of products to start with, and off we go. We'll see what happens here. So just dried that real quick, and then I have this, this is wrapping paper from Papyrus, and I have like gobs of these sheets, so this is a great place to use these. And I just have to say that these wrapping papers from Papyrus, they go down on an art journaling page really nicely. I'm just using matte gel to put it down, and then a little bit on top. And the same thing over here. And so I'm creating two groupings. So these will be the foundation for the groupings, and they just offset each other. A larger one on the right side and a smaller one on the left side. So this is a design decision. And you may be able to hear my cat in the background. I'm sorry. He's back there whining. These are some papers that I got from an envelope that came in the mail. And so just like I like the pattern on these. And some of the edges I'm leaving torn. Some of the edges I'm leaving cut, just for variety. And I'm just continuing to glue those down, and my cat is continuing to meow louder. I'm going to dry those and let those sit for a while. Okay, now I printed, this is a self-portrait I took with my iPhone, with my big hat, and I printed this out on a silver metallic, or a metallic kind of vellum that came from Hobby Lobby. And you have to experiment with your printer to see what kind of vellums you can print on. This seems to be the one that works best in my printer, in my Epson. And so here I'm just deciding on where I want to put it, and what I'm going to do with that. I decided to use it face up, and I'm going to use my matte gel again. Just getting that surface prepared. There we go. Okay. And what I discovered is that this ink is still just a little bit wet, and that's okay. What I could have done was continued moving that ink around the edges, but I decided to leave it. And then I decided to add more of this matte gel on top, and I'm not really sure in hindsight if that works, but oh well, it will tone down a little bit in the end. And then I'm just cleaning up a little bit here and getting ready to dry that. So lots of dry time here. That is still drying. It's still sitting there a little bit wet. I want to use one of these birds, but I didn't want to work with the spray inks yet, so I decided to take a watercolor tube and mix up a lighter blue using that, and I'm just mixing it up. I don't want it too dark, and then I'm going to just use that stencil. Now this is not a screen print stencil, so it's going to not be exact, and that's what I wanted. I'm going to go back later and add ink around the edges of that bird to define it. So I'm just cleaning up my stencil a little bit and then drying that. Alright, and so that's what we've got. Everything is dry. And then I'm just going to go around this little bird to make him pop a little bit. I'm also going to go around the hat. I'm not sure what exactly I'm going to do with the hat just yet, so I just outlined it and then left it for now. I've got the white Pitt pen. These are the brush pens. Love them. And I just add a few more details to that bird. And one of the things that I was thinking about while I created this layout was that I took that picture of myself in my hat in our yard outside the other day, and we've been spending a lot of time outside in our yard with spring coming, and spring is here now finally, and we also have a bird that's made a nest in our wreath, and so this really is kind of drawing some inspiration from what's going on outside. And so right now I'm just using this cardboard or paper, it's really just paper, stencil, to add some modeling paste and dots. And I'm just doing a couple of groupings around the page. I know when you're adding these textural elements, you wonder, where do I put that? Where should I put that? What should I do with this? And think about where you want your eye to go on the page, right? And so it follows that two of the groupings are with the bird and the hat photo, and then a couple more areas along the border. I like to think of the edges of the page as sort of parentheses on these layouts. I'm following that again with the washi tape. I'm just adding a few little strips here and there, just to add a little bit more color and a little bit more visual interest here. This washi tape was from Papyrus as well. And so they're just a little easy way to put down some color, right? Now what I'm working with here is a wooden block stamp. And I just want to say that using a wooden block stamp on paper is not going to give you the exact image that you're looking for. And I'm not stamping that necessarily because I want that particular image, but just because I want the texture of the embossing. And so you'll see how that comes out here in a minute. I'm just trying to make sure I have it covered well with the white embossing powder. And then I'm gonna heat set that real quick. And that did interact a little bit with the matte gel that was on top of the photo. So it was kind of fascinating to see, how these media work together. So that one is set, and now I'm going to do another grouping over here. And again, I'm not looking for that specific design, but I am looking for a little bit of texture. And it also becomes a place for the, when I add fluid color, the fluid color will make patterns around that embossing. So I'm just going to heat set that real quick, and let that pop up. I am thinking about, there's a big blank space right there in the middle of that layout. So I am thinking about what I'm going to do there and how I'm going to handle that. And first I'm going to add this title using some of these Simple Stories alphas. And because I'm thinking about spring and the bird on our front porch and everything, I decided to call it New Life. And then I'm going to seal those a little bit with the gel. Okay, and dry that for a minute. And while that continues to dry, I'm going to grab these rub-ons. These are older, from Notes and Things, from Crepe Paper from a couple of years ago. Still a favorite collection of mine. And so I'm going to just grab a couple of these to use as embellishments. And I love these, right? They're so simple. So simple just to place them on the layout, and that works nicely in that empty space right there. I'm going to use a couple of others around the page, just for a little bit of repetition. And these, I'm a big fan of word strips, so these work nicely. And always, when you use a rub-on, always burnish it back over the top after it's been laid down. Burnish it one more time before you move on. And just notice how I'm using those. I'm using the modeling paste dots as kind of home bases for these embellishments. I go ahead and I decided that I'm going to write some words on the brim of this hat. So I'm using my Pitt pen again. And I cannot say enough good things about those pens. I love them. So I'm just going to fill this in, and it says, "Love this beautiful life." You could write this in pencil first before you do it with ink if you wanted to, but I like to live on the edge. So there we go. I'm looking at this corner in this photo, and it's just dark. It's kind of reacted now. So I decided that I'm gonna add a couple more of those dots with the modeling paste. And in the end, that will work out pretty well when I add the fluid inks. So there we go. Just going to try that again real quick. Okay. And now, I think now I'm going to start working with the fluid inks. And I'm using my Heidi Swapp Color Shine. The one is the mint green, and I can't remember what the other one is called. But here's how I'm going to work with that. I'm I'm going to pour out a little bit of them into a little packaging thing, a clamshell. And I'm going to use, where I have green on the background, I'm going to use green around the edges. And I just put those on with a brush. The brush is very wet. And then add some spray and move it around the page. It's always amazing to me how that makes that pop. Every time it makes these pages pop. For me, this is a fun part. Again, it's moving colors around on the page and not really knowing where they're going to go, and letting that process happen. And you can manipulate it a little bit more using the spray, and also you can lift a little of that color off with your paper towel too. So don't be afraid to work with it a little bit. You have a few minutes to spray and manipulate and let them run across the page to make it look like you want it to look, but there is still an element of surprise there. And right now I'm still working with the green right now. This turned out to be a lot of green on this layout, but I will add a little bit more here in a minute. I'm going to work with that pink. Let me get that a little more dried. You do want to dry each color as you go, just to help it set before you start working with another color. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm grabbing a very wet paintbrush and adding a little bit of water to the color shine, and then add it to the edge of the page. And then spray it and let that work its way across. And so here suddenly, we've tied in that pink from the washi tape. We've tied that in now, in another with the use of another media. And then remember when I painted the bird, I decided to use that blue that was left over, so I flooded that with water just to make it runnier. This is the great thing about watercolors. They harden, they dry, but then once you add water, you can reactivate them. So I'm going to use some of this color up here in this upper corner. And again, I'm laying it down and then removing it a little bit. I actually found an interesting thing while I was doing this. I went to wipe a little bit of the ink up, or the watercolor up, with the paper towel, and I swiped it, and it created a really nice texture with that color. So I want to play with that next time, with putting the color down and then wiping it with the paper towel. There. And so that's today's layout. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you were inspired. Be sure to like and comment and subscribe, and I'll see you back next Monday. Thanks again, guys. Bye-bye.